What's up, y'all? This is Chase, and before we hop into today's podcast, we want to share a message from today's sponsor, Seeds of Love. Seeds of Love bracelets are great. You've seen them on a couple of our podcasts for sure. They're beautiful, nice, while also being low-key. And the best thing about Seeds of Love, in addition to being a great piece of fashion, is their mission. Their mission is to empower village artisans in Guatemala. Every bracelet is handcrafted with love in Guatemala, and $1 from each bracelet goes to support local nonprofit organizations in Guatemala. They're available in over 10 colors, including rose gold, ocean teal, and royal blue. As well, they have stickers and other accessories that you could pair with your bracelets. If you have a loved one's birthday coming up, share some love and sow some love with high-quality bracelets with a purpose, where you can make a difference while also making a fashion statement. You know, what Josue tries to do every single podcast. Follow them on Instagram or Facebook at Seeds of Love Bracelets and go support them. And now for today's podcast.
Welcome to the Perspective Podcast. Josue here. As you guys probably already know, I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I attended the Oral Roberts University. I preach at times, but on this podcast we don't talk about that. Mm-hmm. And to my right, he's actually sitting on my right this time, we have Chase Brown. He was born in Texas. He attended the University of North Texas. He's an expiring.
I hope not expiring. I hope starting up soon.
What's the word there?
Aspiring?
Aspiring.
That's okay.
Aspiring.
English is your second
English
language?
is not my first language. We're starting right off the bat. He's an aspiring philanthropic creative. Wait, why not?
Are you kidding me? How long have you been here?
Well, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. He's an aspiring philanthropic creative, and it is 12/12/2022. Even though it's cold outside, he still loves very long walks on the beach. Why is that? I have no idea. But as the year end is approaching, I'm hoping we're able to get into that. So, Chase Brown, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't really like long walks on the beach whenever they result in me getting a sea urchin spike in my foot, then having to go to the doctor a month later to try to get it out, just for them to fail, for me to have to go to another doctor the next day. And that's my story for the day.
Wow.
Other than that, I'm doing well.
Sea urchins, huh?
Yeah. Didn't know they were really a thing.
Yeah.
Until I just went to Cabo and...
You didn't watch SpongeBob?
No.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Finding Nemo?
Oh, yeah, Finding Nemo?
They had a sea urchin in Finding Nemo?
I'm sure
Shark
they
Tale?
did.
I just remember the little octopus. Oh, you made me eat. Haha. But
Wow.
there was a sea urchin in there?
I'm sure. There has to be.
There was an
I don't think
anemone, and a turtle.
Oh, yeah. Lots of minis.
Man, other than that, though, doing well.
Yeah.
So, how are you, bro?
I'm good, The days are going by. I was off of work for a little bit. When you come back from work after being off for a long time, it just feels like you forget how to do everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and today was busy. Oh, my goodness.
It's the
Lots
end
of
the
calls.
year, bro. People trying to make money at the end of the year.
They are. And I can appreciate that.
Yeah, they're trying to get money for their kids' Christmas presents.
They are. Hopefully they send me some Christmas gifts. But besides that, we do have a gift for you guys today. As you know, every time we have a podcast, not every time, sometimes, we try to bring on a special guest. And today we really had to reach very, very far for our guest for today. We've been asking for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they finally said that they'll give us some of their time. And so, we're appreciative of that. And so I'm just going to read what's on this rundown, just to let you know I'm not the one who made this up.
There's a rundown.
Yeah, there's a rundown. 5 times awarded the best name in the DFW. Crazy. I don't know how she got that name, but... she's still going.
Shout out to her parents.
Shout out to her parents.
Hey. Thanks, Curtis and Susan.
Yeah. 4-time. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this. 4-time most, when I talk to you, I'm going to stare you in your soul, have a conversation with your soul.
But not in an intimidating
Not in
way.
an intimidating
like an
way.
inviting way.
It's an inviting way, like very engaging. But I'm gonna stare in your soul as I'm engaging you in conversation. 3-time new employee of the week. That's a very serious. That's very serious. 2-time. I didn't write this part, so I'll let you know.
Okay.
2-time funniest woman of the year.
I
didn't write that. I didn't write
will
that.
take that.
Yeah, I didn't
Highest
write that.
compliment.
I definitely did not write that. 1-time Alps mission trip leader, legend, Hall of Famer, all the words. Ladies and gentlemen, if you put your hands and how does it go? Hands and feet together.
Yeah, together, whatever.
Yeah. Put your hands and feet together for Ruth Beaman.
Hello.
Hey, Ruth,
wow,
how's it
that
going?
was a stunning rundown.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing that, and thank you for admitting that I am the funniest person you know.
Oh, I didn't
I
write
think
that.
that's how we all heard that.
I didn't
So,
write that.
There's
producers put it
there's
in the
no,
notes.
It came out
there's
of your
no
mouth.
proof that you didn't write that. So
But the producers put that in the
In a
notes.
court of law, the phone's in front of you.
it is.
That would be you.
It is. So thank you for that. Highest honor.
Said from the
Appreciate
Butterman himself.
I'm just saying, the producers put that in there.
It's okay.
Dang.
You're my top 50 for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Actually, that is a high compliment because
It is.
you know about 3,000 people.
At least. So
At least.
That's a good percentage there.
So,
Yeah.
hey, I'll take top 50.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dang. Good thing in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How have you been? What's been going on in life?
Oh, man. It has been busy. And then at the same time, not busy. A lot of transition here in the last couple of months. Ending a job that I'd been at for 6 years. Then not having a job for 3 months and not knowing what to do with myself. And then to just starting a new job last week. It's been good. Mix that in with end of the year craziness and holidays and all of the things. And then... but it's been good. It's been a weird, hard year, but
I feel you.
full of good things as well.
I feel you.
Yeah, so really trying to embrace the grief and joy at the same time that life brings. That's been the last 2 years of my life, really. So by this time, I should be a pro at it.
We would think.
Yeah, one would think. But it's been good. It's ending on a really great note, so I'm very thankful for that. So.
And yeah, us being able to talk about beforehand, we're excited for y'all. It's gonna be fun. Like, and it's so cool because I think that like and you may or may not feel this way. Like, so feel free to just say whatever you want. I feel like you have stewarded like your life up to this point, your young adult life up to this point so well from like so many standpoints where like one, like you, just like we said in the intro, you always make people laugh. Like you always keep people in a good mood, whether it be with like, what would it be? Not pettiness, whether it be with like silly comments of just like, oh, life, oh, how it's so fun right now. Like sarcasm or like genuine things. Like I'll always remember like after the Alps mission trip, having one of the reunions at my parents' house, playing Cards Against Humanity.
Oh gosh.
Or no, like the meme
What do
game
you
or whatever.
mean?
What do you mean? Whatever it was, but that was the first time I met Richard.
Oh, that's
He
right.
blew it away that night. That was hilarious. He killed it, but you killed it as well. Like it was amazing, and like you always just light up the room, and it's amazing. But you also are so intentional about your friendships. Staying at a job for 6 years means not only were you good at your job, but it means you had loyalty, means you had strong ties there that made you at least want to stay there.
Oh.
Even if like, because I kind of feel this right now, even if it's something that is comfortable, it's just like, okay, I do the same thing every day so that if there's things in life that are kind of changing up, I can have a sense of stability somewhere. But even in that, like if you're just beating your head against a wall for like a year or two, like there's no way you're going to stay there.
Right.
Like you have to have people that you care about there, and you have to be a person of integrity to even stay somewhere for 6 years. So like I want to encourage you in that because I really admire you. Like, yeah, you're someone who I've admired since in the years that I've known you.
Well, thank you. I didn't know you were going to be my hype man tonight.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I appreciate that. And wow, I feel like that paints a way better picture of me than what I've felt at times. Adulthood is hard, and I don't feel like I've done it well, but I am glad it appears that way. And thanks for pointing out my therapy coping with humor. That's basically how I get through life.
I mean, Josue too.
Yeah. But if you can't laugh, like, what else are you going to do? Like, there's so many things and situations that are out of your control in life that I was to get frazzled and have anxiety about all of them, I would literally have anxiety all the time and probably be way less happy as a person, just because things go wrong and life is life. And so just learning how to handle, and that is also on #therapy, and just leaning into the Lord and my relationship with the Lord, just leaning into that even more in all of the situations that I've been through in the last 2 years. And the last 2 years of my life have been the hardest years of my life. And that was ending out my 20s because I just turned 30 in May. And, but through it all, it's like the Lord is faithful, and it's really kind of hard to see in the moment, but you see hindsight's 2020. But there's always something that the Lord is teaching you and bringing you through and out of. And so I just try to find those moments in anything that I'm dealing with, but also allowing myself to feel the crap when it's happening as well. So, but thank you. That's very high praise.
Yeah.
Appreciate
definitely.
that.
And yeah, I'll let y'all know what it's like whenever I get to my 30s here in 10 months or whatever it'll be. So
hey,
I'll ask for the advice before.
30 is great. 30, flirty, and thriving, Isn't that what everyone wants?
Yeah, that's a lot of
great.
rhymes.
I've never dreaded my 30s. Did you dread turning 30?
Not at all.
I literally was like running to get out of my 20s.
I don't know if I was running, but like I never thought 30 was this like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get there.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like you...
Yeah, you throw the most crazy part. Well, okay, I guess that's a celebration of turning 30 rather than like a death to your 20s.
Oh, yeah.
You had a crazy part.
No, I'll just be celebrating.
Yeah. I feel like, you men have it a little bit easier, especially in the South.
Break it down for us.
Break it down?
Yeah.
Well, if
Jose's
you're
from the Congo. He doesn't understand.
not... If you are not married by the time you're 30, it's, for a lot of people, a lot of women, that's like the end of the world. And that has I've never felt that way.
Well, let me ask you, since you brought it up, because that's a real thing. And especially, where were you working before? I think you mentioned it. You don't have to say if you don't want to.
Oh, no, I was working at Gateway.
At a church.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're working at a church. And so obviously you come across a lot of different women, that you're doing life with and all that good stuff, as you're saying, being loyal. So then how, because, as guys, we're probably able to deal with it a little bit differently. But I think there's always a lot more societal pressure on women, especially in their 30s or whatever, trying to figure out like this whole love thing and all that. So like, what's some of the things you learned about dealing with that? I don't know if you were dating or what the situation was.
Ooh, we're
I feel
getting
like
into
it a little bit differently.
Unpopular opinions that I have
I
about
wanna hear it all.
Christian
Go.
dating.
Yeah.
I love where this is going.
Yeah.
I have some very hot takes when
That's
it
okay.
comes to Christians dating and women dating in the Christian realm. I think that the majority of Christian dating is complete BS. Oops, I said it. I think that at some point, women have just completely taken a backseat to dating. And in the sense of, I see your face. I see it. I see your
I'm
wide
about
eyes. to
agree with you.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
No,
like,
they've taken to a backseat of dating, of just being so passive. And the man is supposed to put all this effort in towards pursuing me, and I'm going to be coy, and I'm not going to show any interest, but then I'm going to get mad when a guy isn't interested in me. But like you're...
I gotta stand up for this. I'm standing up. Keep going. Don't stop.
It's just, Siri. And I just think like for me, it was like, okay, so all of you women are waiting for the FedEx guy to propose to you. And so I would go to these young adult events where all of these girls are being like, oh my God, that guy. And I'm like, go talk to him. And they're like, no, he needs to pursue me. And I'm like, how in the world do you think you're going to get married or even get a date if you will not go and show a least bit interest in anyone ever? And so you're welcome, Josue, for these. And that is that is an unpopular opinion within women in the church of that if I show interest, I'm the one pursuing. And I just don't think that that's the case. Like, how is a guy supposed to know or even try to shoot his shot with you?
And how would he even know who you are?
Right.
Without that and even being able to be friends. And then if the guy goes up to you, then you could easily just play the card of like, oh, he just wants me for my looks. Like,
yes. Or it's like, oh man, there's so much here. It's just, or a guy does get the,
just say it.
the balls to go up and ask you.
Thank you.
You shoot him down immediately and then you go and talk about him to everyone else, and you almost like have this embarrassment, but like it's like you don't really know him, so who's to say that one of your girlfriends are interested and you've just like badmouthed him to like everyone, and so then you have this perpetual death circle of dating happening in the church that like everyone knows everyone but no one's going to date anyone because everyone has had some maybe weird or awkward experience with one of them at some point 10 years ago. And it's so dumb. It is so dumb. And then it doesn't help that most of the pastors on staff at churches got married when they were 18. And they're trying to tell you how to date in the modern world when they've been married for 15 years. And so you have that aspect as well. And it's very out of touch. And you know, people are dogging online dating, but like, really, how are you supposed to meet someone? And it's like, I don't think dating apps are sleazy.
Just go to one of Josue's parties.
Exactly. Yeah. Go to a mixer at Josue's. But so when I decided that I wanted to intentionally date in the beginning of 2020, which LOL. Isn't that hilarious?
Timing is a little...
the timing was really great. But it was like I had done the church realm. I had, showed interest here, showed interest there. And I didn't get my feelings hurt too. Like that, I think that's a huge thing of like, you're not rejecting me fully as a person because you don't fully know me.
Exactly.
And so there's no reason to get my panties in a wad over that. And so... going on Hinge dates and Bumble dates and this and that, it just became more comfortable to where it was like the joke of like, who's Ruth going out with this week? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'll find a date. Like, because I had the desire to get married and I feel like the Lord put that desire there, but I have to do faith without works is dead. Marriage without dating is dead. So like date. It's not the end of the world.
And marriage without faith, taking risks, is dead.
Yes. So those are my hot takes on dating. Listen, it worked for me. I met my boyfriend on Hinge. It's going great. We're
Shout
great.
out.
And like, I don't know. So I just, those are my hot takes when it comes to Christian realm dating. But all that being said too, going back to like turning 30, I've never thought that marriage was like the end goal in life for me. I think it's a compliment to what the Lord has called me to do. And whenever that the timing was right and whenever that would happen, it was going to happen. And so I know for a lot of women, like that is like their one desire in life. A lot of the times is just, I want to be married. I want to be a mom. I want to do this. I want to do that. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. But my identity is not going to be wrapped up in marriage. Like the Lord has called me to so much more than just that. And, so I always looked forward to 30 of like, this is great. I'm single. This is fun. I wasn't single, actually. I was with my boyfriend at the time when I turned 30 and it was great. But it just, there's so much pressure in the South especially in the South, in the church realm, to like get married so young. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. If that is what the Lord's timing and the Lord has called y'all to do, like, great, that's cool. But that's not everyone. And I think the pressure that the church puts on the world and puts on women, especially, it's too much. And it just is like so serious. Dating should be fun. Go out on dates.
Yes.
Date.
Just get to know people, hang out, spend time together.
Just ask people out. That's also, I would ask guys out. Sorry, I did it.
Do it.
I did it. I know.
I don't disagree.
I know.
Oh gosh,
All
let
right,
me sit
Josue,
down.
take your seat.
I know, but a lot of people do. They disagree with that. And it's not like, I don't know. He would have to show some initiative and some interest, of course. But I was never afraid to be like, so do you want to go grab dinner sometime? And they'd be like, I'd love to. And I'm like, great. And then I'd be like, so like pick a place and, put it back on them. But
Yeah, and if that continues, he could show leadership beyond that first step. Like, that's a whole journey. There's 1,000 steps on this journey.
Absolutely.
Just because you take one that's ahead of him doesn't mean, I'm unequally yoked with the guy.
right.
Like,
That is garbage.
it doesn't make him a weak leader. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Gosh, I'm gonna take. We won't clip that part and then just turn it into a separate thing because I've literally been saying this for like so many years, and I feel like a lot of women in the church just don't want to listen to me. I don't know, not because I feel like I'm right, but to me it logically makes sense.
Right.
There are more women in the church than there are men. If you're just waiting for the guy to magically always just find you,
Right.
that might not happen. And then you get mad at somebody else for putting themselves in that position where they're seen and he's like, oh man, who is this? And then now he's the bad guy. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm not saying you gotta go propose to the dude,
No.
but at least, if you're interested, like, I just don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
either.
I really don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me where I'm just like, say something, make it known,
Right.
or something. He might not know. He might just think you're his brother, as you guys love saying so much, or sister. And until somebody kind of steps out and says something, and so I don't know. I just loved everything you said, and I just gotta agree with you 1,000%. I don't even think that should be a hot take, though.
Right.
But there's so many. I know. Oh my goodness.
But there's so many. There's so many of them.
I know.
There's so many of them. And I'm just like, I've literally had people ask me, be like, oh my gosh, where did you find him? And I'm like, I searched my butt off to find, like, I went on, and I don't think it's bad, but like, I literally intentionally dated for 2 years until I met him. And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And of course, like if the Lord is telling you that chill out, or, you need a season of just you, like, of course, listen to the Holy Spirit and to the Lord. And if you don't feel like you should, but I also think that there's over spiritualization in that as well, of like, well, the Lord hasn't given me clearance to take you out on coffee. And you're like, okay, but like the Lord trusts you to make decisions in your life, and He gave you a brain, so you should probably just like ask, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
As a daughter, He's given you authority over certain things. Like, in going from a servant to a daughter under Jesus, you have authority you have more authority as a daughter than you would as a servant. You have authority and discernment to make choices over things.
Yes, and so I think you're right. I don't think it should be a hot take, but it is. And so I think it's getting maybe a little bit more normalized. I would really hope. But I encourage all my girlfriends of like, guys, just go date. Go get on the apps. Like, obviously, keep it clean. Don't be sleazy.
Yeah.
But date.
I wanted to touch on something you said, and I hope people didn't miss that part. The part where a guy may come up to you and you may not find him whatever. He's not your cup of tea, as people say. And then you go and you spread your perspective of said guy amongst your friends. And then all of a sudden it's like, dude is like public enemy number one.
Yes.
He can't talk to no other person within this circle here. And I'm just like, this is so weird to me.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm like, if I try to talk to somebody and it doesn't work, one day I'm going to be married, they're going to be married. I'm not even going to care about the fact that I try to talk to you one day. So, like, why does it become such a... I feel like people take it so personally.
Almost take offense to it or something
like he tried to talk to me. You can't talk to him. I'm like, why?
I don't understand
who's coming
that.
up with these laws? Like, I don't understand.
No.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, obviously, if people dated, I get that. Like, okay, maybe you don't want to date your friend's ex or whatever. I get that. But if it was simply someone showed interest and you said no and they can't show interest to someone else that to me, I'm just like, that's a little weird. Why would you even care?
Right.
Like, shouldn't you be happy for, I don't know, but,
I don't understand either. I don't get it. Or the people that judge, I mean, that's what they're judging people that have asked multiple people out.
Right.
And they're like, they're just shooting their shot with everyone. And I'm like, well, good.
Yeah.
Like, if they're interested in, to an extent, like, don't go through the entire young adults roster.
I mean, you can.
Josue.
Don't build out a basketball team here.
No, listen.
Just kidding.
When you put out an application, you put out an application.
Right.
I mean, am I lying? You put in an application, you only need one person to hire you, right? That's all you need.
There you
Well, you
go.
gotta put it in an application to show interest, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're gonna put it in an application one place and they say, God don't want me to work, what are you talking about? Keep putting in applications. But
Right.
you guys should read my book. I'll write a book one day and then we'll see how it
I
goes.
also think it's so for women and I'm sure for men as well, it's the fear of rejection constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And that can be paralyzing for some people. But I just got to the point, and it may just be just getting older and just really not caring what people think about me at all. But of like, they don't know me, so they can't fully reject me. They just don't have this... the spark isn't there for them.
Right.
And like, okay, great, cool. Well, they don't know me. I'm not going to take that personally. And you just kind of like move on from that. But people get really hung up on that. And that comes obviously from their own insecurity and things within themselves. But,
Yeah. And I was talking with actually Destiny's little brother, Josiah, because he's dating a girl now that he's known for like a long time. But whenever he moved out to Orlando at the start of this year, he realized it. Me and him talked about it in August, but basically you pointed it out. And I think in Dallas, Fort Worth, like there's like there's a heavier presence of it here. But he was like, yeah, man, like whenever you're in DFW, like I didn't see it till I got out of Orlando, but like everyone knows everyone's business in the church world, and especially within dating. And like this might be different if you're in LA or if you're in New York or this or like whatever. But at least in Dallas Fort Worth, it's like, oh yeah, that person dated that one person that one time, and so like, I don't really feel comfortable doing it for some reason. And especially the gossip and the dishonoring that you talked about, and that is just like it. Not everyone needs to know every single bad thing that a person did to you, because then like if you're doing that, then at some point you're trying to obtain like the moral high ground in things. And as well, I think other people who are on the receiving end of that gossip, like if you aren't there, like if you're letting the friend vent and express things, like obviously have discernment if they're just trashing this person or if they're venting. But if they're venting, then it's like, okay, know that, but then at the same time understand that people can grow, and don't just continue to look at that person and being like, yo, just because of this one thing that they did 2 years ago, this is how I'm always going to see them.
Right.
And especially in DFW with, like, frankly, how much people church hop and just go all over the place. Like, it's very easy to take one anecdote from 2 years ago and not just be who that person is in your mind forever.
Yeah, it's not leaving any room for growth in the fact that, like, everyone's in their 20s in adulthood figuring out life. And I don't want my dirty laundry aired to everyone, or what I said at one time be put on display. I think that there's a fine balance of... with women, like looking out for other women and, hey, I had this experience with this guy, so just like be cautious kind of thing. Yeah. But then it's the, flip side of just completely bashing him. And it's like, it just may not be your cup of tea, but like, he's not, he's a good dude. Like, don't like completely rake him through the coals and allow, room to grow, because we're all growing all the time. And so, but I think, being in the Bible Belt doesn't help.
Yeah. Do you have any other hot takes, Josue?
Yeah, they're not really hot takes, but like I've just seen a lot of. I just don't know if people like in church circles like were all just homeschooled or what the situation was.
What happened?
But I remember when I first started going to Gateway, I came from college, and no, I was out about 2 years. But I remember like just having conversations with women, and they'd be like, guys at Gateway don't talk to us. For example, it's not a Gateway thing, just an observation for young adults. Guys at Gateway don't talk to us. And then as soon as I would talk to them as a friend, it was like, oh, he's hitting on us. I'm like, whoa, so which one is it? Am I either hitting on you or am I talking to you just as a friend? So I think like initially, no joke, when I first started going, I didn't want to go anymore. Because to your point, there was a lot of things that were being said. And I was like, I'm just trying to be friendly with people. Like, I'm not even trying to do all that stuff, but it was just like people's perception. At a Gateway Young Adults retreat, one of my friends told me, hey, I was in a room with the girls, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, they were talking about you. I'm like, oh, no. And then, but it was that same thing where it's like, oh, he's like friendly to us. I'm like, I'm trying to be friendly. I'm not trying to, not be friendly because you're saying guys don't communicate. It wasn't even like, let me ask you out, because I don't ask people out. That was not what I was doing during that time. I was super safe. But that was a joke. But like I just found that very strange because people do talk and it does color your image of somebody, whether you like it or not. You know what I'm saying? You can, a guy that, for example, try to talk to you once, you could have had a bad experience. And whatever you would have shared with me, every time I see him, I will think about that. Yeah. Especially when I don't know the person, And we can be in a culture where if we're doing that about people, what I'm saying? Like a guy comes around or a girl comes around and they already have, people already think a certain way about them without even knowing them as a person or without even allowing them to change at all. So I just think a lot of that stuff can be messy, It can be really messy and then kind of sway people from wanting to put themselves out there because why are you always trying to meet somebody? Because they want to, like, right? I don't understand. I never understood that. Like, no, it's like, okay, you shouldn't be doing this at church. Where else are they going to be doing this at? Right. I'm like, that one is the one I for sure don't understand. It's like, so if they're not meeting people at church, where do you want them to meet them? Because they go to these young adults things and they're told, hey, one day you are running. And then there's somebody running and you look over there and they look over and you guys see each other. With you. Anyway, so.
But that's supposed to happen just like.
Magically.
No
conversation happens.
Right.
You're just running.
Just out of nowhere. Yeah. You don't have to put any effort towards it and it just happens. Yeah. BS.
So welcome to the Perspective Podcast.
I love this. Started out hot.
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah, thank you for being honest.
Yeah, for real. Thank you for being honest. I'll clap for you if I could, but I can't because I'm holding the mic. I was able to clap.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I really think this really does help people. Yeah. Like especially young adults in the church culture because I think that's where a lot of the struggle comes in a lot.
You may have been in the Congo at the time, so I'm not sure. But there was a book that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s called I Kissed Dating Goodbye that destroyed dating in the church. And since then, that guy has come out and he's actually, deconstructed his entire faith. We won't talk about that point. But he came out and said basically his whole book was like total garbage. And that is literally kind of where like this whole purity movement, no dating, know who your spouse is before you ever date them kind of thing came from. And that is the generation of millennials. That's the dating that we grew up with. And especially like I grew up in the Baptist world and that book was hot in the Baptist world. And it was literally like, don't date anyone unless you know they're your spouse. And so that's how we grew up of like, okay, I won't date anyone unless I know they're my spouse.
Yep.
And so I think we're coming out of it, hopefully. But I really
hopefully
think
we
that
don't
book-
swing in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a balance to it all, of course. Of course. But yeah, no, just date. It's fun. It's fun. Dating's fun.
It's fun if you make it fun.
It is. And like, I think it's all about your perspective on dating too, of like, I always was like on first dates, this is either going to be a good first date and I'm going to want to go out with him again, or it's going to be a really good story. Honestly. And I did have some very interesting, good stories, for sure. And then someone where you're like, yeah, cool, I want to go on a second, third date with you. And then other ones you're just like, yeah, you're not great. But it's all just in your perspective and how you date.
Yeah.
So let me ask
just
you
date.
Yeah. So in light of, just date, don't do the weird thing where it's like, how are you really supposed to know that's your wife unless there's some kind of
Right.
husband, wife, whatever. So what
Give you
are
that crazy prophetic word? Like,
it gotta be right.
Don't prophesy. Don't prophesy marriages or babies.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So what are some, I guess, in light of that, as you mentioned, you got the opportunity to date, for those 2 years and, going through that. What would you say are some practical things that men and women, could do to kind of, whether it be like figure out what you like, give it an honest chance, or I don't know, however you would put that. Like, what are some practical things that people could do, to date and to date well? Because obviously, like you said, we don't want it to swing to the other side,
Right.
or just become something reckless. But what are some practical things that people can do, especially in the church circles and things like that?
That's a good question. I think it's really just putting yourself out there. If you are wanting to date intentionally and find someone, then you have to go to things. Like if you're one of the people that are against the apps and you want to meet someone in the church, then you have to go to church events and you have to talk to people outside of your clique or serve in a different area that you don't normally serve in. For me, I serve. Yes, everyone serve. For me, the practical on the dating app side of things, because that's really where, honestly, that's where I did all my dating, because it was COVID. I went on a lot of walks because everything was shut down. But I was like, I didn't text or with a person for like weeks on end. Like it was, can you hold a conversation? Do we have good banter? And if we do, most of the days it was like a couple of days that we would be just kind of chit-chatting back and forth. Then I want to go on a date. And I want to see if we have in-person chemistry, because I'm not going to sit here and be your texting buddy for weeks or a month and then find out that I don't actually like you in person. And so that was one of the things that I really kind of set in place, is like, if we can't meet after basically like a week and a half, depending on schedules and whatnot, then like I'm going to call it, because I'm not here to be your texting buddy. So that was something that I think was really helpful. And there's a lot of times where you go in person and you're like, oh, you are a dud in real life. Like you can't handle a conversation. I'm way funnier than you. And that was a joke, but not really. It happened a few times. I'm sorry. And so I think it's just that. And honestly, I think the practical side is just go on dates. Like, don't overthink it. Just go on a date. This is like terrible practical advice. I'm trying to think of other things.
As you're thinking of another thing going off of that, I think one thing for guys, coming from the single dude on this podcast, because I think I place pressure on myself whenever I'm taking people on dates for it to be like, yo, this is going to be the best date this girl's ever been on, and have it be lots of money. I'm going to very much say this from a vulnerable place, not from any sort of underhanding pride place. There's been times where I've spent about $600 on like
a first date?
On a third date. Yes, I was dumb.
Oh, you better than me.
Were you already head over heels for this girl or something?
I thought there was real potential, and then that night I figured out, nope, absolutely
Yeah.
not. It's too high maintenance. Not what I'm looking for.
I was
all of that.
never looking for over the top dates.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to get to know you. And so for me, it's like, if you take me somewhere loud, like, we can't really talk. And so I know, like, normally it's like, oh, you want to go to dinner and a movie? And, like, that's nice. Or I'm definitely more like a dinner and an activity kind of person. I think coffee is a sham. I'm just going to say that.
Oh,
I
that's
think
what you might become one of my favorites. I'm not going to lie to you.
coffee dates are a sham because I feel like it's like kind of dipping your toe in the water, but not really. And like, I don't feel like there's intentionality behind a coffee date.
Talk about it.
And so it's like, if you can't even commit to like taking me to dinner, like, are you even like wanting to get to know me at all and see if this is going to go anywhere at all? At least that's how I perceive it. And I'm like, what really is the difference between coffee and dinner other than
the time of day is.
The time of day, and you're spending a little bit more money. I had someone that wanted to take me coffee at like 7 p.m. and I was like, can we just go get dinner instead? And they're like, no, I just really want to go do coffee. And I was like, well, I really don't want to do this. So,
but yeah, going off of that, practical advice for dudes is like, even if you spend like a night or two doing this, but look around your city, think of like middle of the road like options for dinner, something that is not super cheap, something that's not super expensive, that can fit within your budget, that you'd be comfortable with, and then think of an activity after that. Like, think of this stuff before it comes up, and so then not to be like, oh, I'm gonna pull all of the tricks out of my back pocket for every single girl, because then you're sleazy, but just be intentional about those things before the opportunity even comes up. Be prepared.
And I will say, I always responded better to men who were like, I want to take you here. And I'd be like, yes, thank you. Instead of like, well, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't know. Because a lot of those times I was like, hey, do you want to grab dinner? And it's like, I already kind of initiated that, showed that I want to go to dinner. And they're like, yeah, it sounds great. Well, like, where do you want to go? And it's kind of like, I want you to pick. Like, you pick. And so, practical for men, hey, maybe just like tell them where you want to take them instead of asking them. I know women can be like, you know, I don't want this, I don't want that. And like, girls, just like shut up and let a guy take you to dinner. If it's not your absolute favorite place ever, you're going to live. You're going to be fine. It's one dinner. And don't, like I said, I've said it a couple of times, but like, don't take dating personally. Like, it's not that personal. It's not. Especially first date, second date, even third date sometimes. Like, it's really not that personal. They don't hate you. They're just not feeling it. Move on. Find someone who is. So.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
I was literally
Except I won't drop it because it's expensive, I'm sure.
Josue is just like trying to collect his thoughts here. Just like, I cannot believe I finally found someone, a friend who is like agreeing with me in this. He's thinking of all the business models right now. Just like, how can we like turn this into something?
Well, no, because I feel like a lot of guys have always agreed with this. My struggle has always been like, Christian women are like, nope.
Yeah.
I gotta sit here until my night or whatever comes and sweeps you off my feet. I'm like,
well, and I even have friends that, of course, they love me and don't judge me, but they were like, I don't get it. I don't get why you're doing this, and I don't feel like you should be doing this. And I'm like, that's fine. You're still single, and I'm not. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's up to you. Like, it's up to you, and you're going to get out of it what you put in. And so, again, listen to the Lord and the Holy Spirit and what He's telling you to do in regards to dating in general. Because I know there's been seasons where the Lord is just like, hey, why don't you just like focus on me for a little bit? And I'm like, sir, yes, sir. You know, I'll take a chill pill. But yeah, I think I am in the minority of women with this opinion, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I saw a video once. This pastor said, he was like, a sign of wisdom is for you, like obviously if you want to get married, that's not for everybody, right? For those that do though. He was like, a sign is you being able to find a spouse for yourself. You know, because you're taking in all the information you know about yourself, the other person, and you come into a place where you're like, okay, I want to do this with said person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's important, right? Like you said, being able to use wisdom in this situation to be able to pick. And like I always tell my friends, not the guys, obviously, because I feel like sometimes in being pursued, right, like when you're the one that's always pursuing, like the Christian women that are just waiting for the, Prince Charming, whomever that guy is, to come and sweep them off their feet. I feel like with that mentality, it's easy for you just to receive.
Yeah.
And you never switch your mindset to think, hey, I need to pursue you in return. It might not look the same way,
right,
but I need to pursue you with my words, with how much of time and attention and all of these things I'm giving towards you. Because I feel like as a guy, when you're just pouring out and just giving, and it's not being reciprocated, it's easy for you to be like, you know what, I'm just going to go with somebody else. It is exhausting, and I think sometimes, like I've had conversations with people, especially the last 6 years being around young adults and kind of just observing. I'm like, man, like you, as a guy, it doesn't feel good putting yourself out there and never getting that in return.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, man, you got to reciprocate. Because ultimately, if I'm pursuing you and you're accepting my pursuit, it's for the sake, hopefully, getting engaged, dating, engaged, married, whatever, right? So you think one day that switch is going to magically switch on, when you're married? Or you could practice it as we're going through these various steps. So we're doing this thing together because it's like, love is easy if we're both have our lives laid down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if one person has laid their life down and the other person hasn't, there's a lot of not restriction. There's a lot of resistance there. There's a lot of friction there that can happen. And so I'm always like, man, you got to reciprocate, ladies. You got to reciprocate because we need that. Like, we need that assurance. I got to be able to know, like, man, this person cares enough to reach out to me. It's not always me, sending these texts or doing these small things.
I've always thought that too, of like, what do I want from someone in a relationship? Well, of course I want a good morning text, but he does too. So like, I'm not going to play this game of, is he going to text me first? Is he going to do this? Or I think that is a part of Christian dating as well, is there's always this game to it. And dating in general, there's this game of, how long do I wait to text him? Don't tell him you had too good of a time. Like, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm going to tell him exactly how I feel and where I'm at with things. And would I want someone to, like I said, text me good night, text me good morning? Of course, yeah. And so, like, I'm going to do the same for him. It's 100% and 100%. It's not 50-50. Like, we're both putting all of our effort towards this. And then if I don't feel like it's reciprocated back, then I know where he stands. And okay, yeah, if you can't give me this, then, like, this is not going to work out, this, or even this early on, kind of thing. And he can't take initiative or stuff like that. But it's on the girls too to do that as well. You can't just sit there and expect the guy to do everything all the time. Like, also, I thought about this when you were talking. I remember one time talking to my mom, which my parents, very blessed, my parents have been married 40 years, but they got married when they were 18 and 20, so very young. And I remember saying to my mom one time, man, I just want someone like my dad. I just want to marry someone like my dad. And she goes, that's not the man I married, right? Like, wow. He has learned, and we have, grown together over the years, but your dad, like, my dad's incredibly thoughtful, and he is, like, acts of service driven, and he wants to do things for everyone all the time, and he's calling and taking care of me, and, like, all of these things. And she's like, he's learned over the years all of those things. He wasn't always super thoughtful about stuff. He wasn't always thinking about these little details all the time. He wasn't this, and she was like, you're growing. And so for me, that's always been in my mind of like, I can't expect a 30-year-old to act exactly like my 60-year-old father who's been married for 40 years. And so I think obviously having standards and expectations of something that you want in a future husband is obviously needed. He's not going to be perfect because I'm not perfect and I can't expect perfection. And I think that if there's a glimmer of anything in this man, like the Lord can grow it. And not saying you need to date a project by any means. But I think it's going back to like giving the chance to the guy to grow, because I also want to be given the chance to grow. And so I think a lot of times women have these insane expectations of men and where they believe that they should be in their walk with the Lord and where they are in life. And I think that like those just need to be taken down a bit. Just like
Lamb Family,
take
a Daystar.
them down a little bit and allow him room to grow.
And just reflect to see, like, which granted, you have to know him for a period of time. And so reflect while you're with him to see if he is growing.
Yes.
Like, and that will be signs that he will grow whenever y'all are married.
Right.
And if he's not growing while you're in the relationship, okay, this is probably a sign.
Right.
This is who he's going to be for life, and he's not going to grow while he's married.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how much this is going to hit, but I'll just say this from like a spiritual anecdote. Ladies, if you get a prophetic word about your husband, don't expect him to meet every single thing the first time that you meet him. Expect that, because it's supposed to encourage him. Expect that to be who he's going to be growing into.
Yes.
See some of those traits, see some of those early character traits that'll feed into like whatever that is.
Yes.
That is your idealized image of him through these people correctly or incorrectly prophesying this over you. But to put it in non-spiritual terms, if you have a list, don't expect him, as Ruth is saying, to have it the first time around. Like,
obviously there's boxes that he can tick that you want, and it's vice versa. I think a lot of times, men have this picture perfect vision of what they want in a future wife as well. And so it's just allowing of like what is really, really important. Well, like, is he pursuing the Lord? Obviously, like that's one. But like, I think it kind of goes back to like, well, is he ambitious? Is he taking initiative? And it's like one time maybe he doesn't. And it's like, well, this is how it's going to be the rest of our life. And I'm not going to date a man that's not going to take initiative on this. And I'm like, okay, go sit down. And this is going to sound really harsh. Those are the people that you're like, I understand why you're single. Like, there's some people where I'm like, I truly don't understand why you're single. And then there's other people where I'm like, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I totally get it.
Yeah. I was, I remember talking to, shout out to her, she's married now, so I can't say names. But we're still friends, because so we're still friends. But I remember when we were talking some years back, and I was at work, we were texting about something, and I was going to the bathroom, and I was reading a text, and I was laughing. Just happy moment. As you should be whenever you're talking to somebody. And the Lord asked me, why can't love be easy, right? And it goes to the point that you said where it's like, why do I need to play all these games where I'm not going to share with them how I feel?
Right.
I'm not going to text them because of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa. So, like, I always tell people that, I'm like, why can't we make this thing easy? Why do we need to put all of these weird games and play all these weird things for something that you want?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's something that you want. Like, why do we need to make this any harder than it already is? And obviously, we're not talking about those like extreme situations, right? Nobody ever talks about that. Normal people aren't on the extreme end of things, right? Because I know a lot of guys that have really put themselves out there. It's always the ones that are like, nobody ever talks to me, and then a guy will come and talk to them. They're like, no.
Right.
But it's always like, guys don't pursue me. And another one will come and talk to them, and they're like, no. So that like that always fascinated me, you know. But I've just, by the grace of God, you know, not saying I'm like, you know, some Michael B. Jordan or whatever. That's never the case. I never saw myself like that, right?
I know you're not, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
We
I don't
love
have
you
to
anyway.
I tell them I make up for it in personality. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
100%, right? But like I've had moments where, you know, I'll go talk to people. And I've had moments where people come talk to me, and I'm like, it boosts your ego. You know what I'm saying? And maybe this is just me telling them myself, but because I feel like I don't want Christian women to feel like we're beating up on them, because that's not the case. I know for me, so maybe this is a point for the guys, for the men. I know for me, it always felt good having the attention.
Yeah.
You know, and because it felt good having the attention, it was easier for me to bail out of things that probably were good, but I just found reasons to always nitpick and find like, nope, you're like, nah,
Yeah.
that's not good, that's not good, that's not good, because I always knew I could always fall back on my options, you know. And I read this thing once. I'm not even like a reader like that. I read this article once that was like, the problem with Christian men is a lot of you guys have too many options and you don't know how to pick, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, they're talking to me right now. I was like, shoot. You know, it's like, I think that's also an aspect for some guys where either one, we love the attention, or two, you have all these options and it makes it harder for you to pick, and you're always questioning. Because that was me. I was the one that would always question, what if there's something better elsewhere, you know? Until I saw this post. Social media has a weird way, or God has a weird way of communicating with you. And it was like, you know, the expression is, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? And it was like, but even if it is, it's because somebody watered it.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about the grass on the other side, why don't you water what you have? And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, this is deep.
I thought you said you didn't preach on here.
Oh, my bad. That's just,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I
I mean, both y'all right now.
It's what I read somewhere. But that thing alone made me take a step back and stop always trying to find the greener grass in other places and say, man, this is what I have. I'm going to keep watering it. You know, I'm going to pour, you know, whatever it is that I got, to use that analogy, instead of always being so like options driven, that it makes it hard, you know, to like commit. You know, I think they call it commitment issues. Is that what that is?
Listen, we get it. You're like really popular, and like women were like throwing themselves at you. No, but I hear what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
It's
No, of course not.
Like, if there's women that show up to your birthday party when you require formal attire, there are women who are committed to you, bro.
I have a question,
What's the question?
that I thought about this earlier when you were talking. Do you believe that there is like one person meant for you?
Great question. I'll start first. Wow. I personally don't think so.
Same.
Yeah, and I think the reason, I mean, there's multiple reasons, but I'll leave some for you guys. But once again, I saw this video that I really think pictured it very well. This guy was preaching, and he had 4 couples, like guy and girl. They weren't dating. So there was a couple wearing red, green, blue, and yellow, for example. And they were all standing across from each other. And then he was like, okay, so what if, for example, red goes to the same school as green, and then they meet because they live in the same state, and then they get married, and then green is over here, red is over here, like, I'm supposed to marry red. Well, now it's too late because they're already married. And so he was just kind of just mixing it up like that. And I was like, that's what happens, you know?
Yeah.
And how do you exactly, quote unquote, know, you know, with such confidence and assurance? Because I've been to a lot of weddings in my days, you know, probably more than a lot of people. And man, you know, when people stand on that altar, you're going to swear they're always going to be together. And sadly, that's not the case,
Right.
you know? And it's like for people that say, you are my world, and for 5 years for that to end, I'm like, okay, there's a disconnect here somewhere, you know? And so, so my thing is like, nah, I don't think there is, because God forbid the one dies a year from
Right.
your wedding.
Right.
And then what are you left with? You know what I'm saying?
No
So,
hope that, that was it. That's it. It's over. No, I think that too. And I feel like that is a not widely held opinion either in the church realm. Like, I feel like it comes back to like the Lord giving you wisdom though, of like, you know, I feel like when you have I don't know, this may sound wrong, but when you have a more mature relationship with the Lord, you're walking, like it's a daily, constant thing. It's very personal. I feel like there comes a point where the Lord, you're asking the Lord, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Mm-hmm. And he's like, look, there's like 7 options, and I trust you to make the decision yourself. Like whatever option you take is going to be blessed. Because I think a lot of times we get really worked up in, well, if I do this instead of this, like I'm going to throw off my entire life plan that the Lord has for me. And that just puts like so much pressure on everything. I feel the same way about who you're going to marry. I feel like the Lord is like, there's all these options, and like use wisdom and it's up to you. But I also feel like obviously there's the Lord in who you're dating and who you're going to marry and all of that. And those that, that's going to sound really harsh. The first thing that popped in my head of like those that are like blessed and meant to be together, and those that are maybe not saying you're going to ruin your life if you don't marry the person that you feel like the Lord has for you. Anyway, I agree. All that to say. But yeah, I was just curious what you thought.
Yeah, no, because I yeah, we break that thing down because once again, research, and someone's like
TikTok. Is it TikTok research?
No,
okay.
This is
that's what people say. Like, I saw this article the other day, and I'm like, you saw a TikTok, didn't you? Okay.
No,
cool.
Because someone was like, man, so you're telling me God doesn't force Jesus to pick people, but He forces you to marry people? Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah.
You know?
Whoa.
And I was just like, okay, well, that's one way to put that.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, it doesn't make sense, you know? Because we're going to turn around like Adam, the wife that you gave me. You know, God's like, nah, you're going to pick. You're going to pick for yourself.
That's good.
I think a couple things. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question directly. I think just a couple things going off of your point, Ruth. Marriage is God's design for men and women. Whenever we enter into that with obedience and with faith, His favor will be there. And so us making that commitment is where the favor comes, mainly not from finding the one.
Yeah.
I think I talked with Chaz about this. I can't remember what story it is. There are like a couple stories in the Bible where there is the idea of like the one, like the Lord being like, hey, like this is the one that I've made for you. But also God works on an individual by individual basis.
Yeah.
That's what's beautiful about Him. For some people, there could be one person out there. For others, it could be like, hey, yeah, I made 7 for you. You can pick. But then for all those 7 women, God could be like, yeah, I made 7 each for you.
Yeah.
You can pick. And so it's not like it's only the man who's picking as well, which is beautiful. And then from there, I would also say, to your point, but even simplifying it, there's certain people who you marry that it'll be easier, and then certain people who it'll be more difficult, but God's favor is there. And at the end of the day, for a man, your whole responsibility in marriage, simplifying it to the lowest common denominator, is loving her so well. Francis Chan said this. Have never gotten it out of my head since. Loving her so well so that she hears, well done, good and faithful servant, whenever she passes. No matter how hard. And if it's even harder, that just means you have to lean on the Lord more and mature more. Like that's just a greater challenge, which through, I'm sure Josue can say the verses, but in like Romans and Ephesians, it's just like, all right, like challenges are needed for us to grow into being Christ-like. And so that's just a better challenge for you to be able to grow. Simply put.
So there's...
That's a lot more eloquent than I said, so thank you for wrapping that up.
I simplified it down. You did the eloquence.
Let's give some Bible verses so people are like, oh, these people talking crazy. So 1 Corinthians 7, I like to call it a relationship chapter, because So on one hand, he's dealing with people that are widowed, right? He says, for widowed women, feel free to marry whoever you want. The only condition was as long as they are in the Lord. He didn't say feel free to go marry. Feel free to go marry whoever God has spoken to you and said this is your husband. No. He said feel free to marry whoever you want as long as they're in the Lord. And even culturally for them back then, it was one of those things where if we're married and then I die, you gotta marry my brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like that just throws away a lot of the things that we like to think. But he also says that if you've married an unbelieving spouse, he doesn't say for you to divorce them, but you would say, hey, this person's unbelieving. That can't be the one. But the Bible doesn't say for you to divorce them because you're in covenant already, you know? And so it's understanding that, man, whoever I'm going to pick, hopefully I pick well. Hopefully I use wisdom. Hopefully I pray about it. Hopefully my friends are like, hey, we approve of this. Hopefully family is like, hey, great job. Hopefully those around me really see those things. Because once we enter into covenant, you have become the one. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like once we get into covenant, you've become the one. And we're in this process of laying our lives down and growing with one another. And because if I lay my life down and you lay your life down, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
But whenever that thing is kind of imbalanced, that's where a lot of the challenge comes in. So there's not a lot of stories. I mean, the only one that I know of that I could even think about maybe is Isaac and Rebecca. The servant went and was like, okay, whoever's going to feed my camels and do all these different things, that's going to be his wife. Yeah. Rebecca came and did all those different things. Voila. That was the thing. So I think the Lord is able to give us confirmation whenever we are praying about things, because it's a big decision and we need confirmation and leading in all of these different things. In a multitude of something, there's wisdom. In a multitude of counsel, there's wisdom, right? So being able to find wisdom in like, hey, what do y'all think about so-and-so and their character, and y'all have been around them, like, what's your honest, like, how do you see us? Like, are we good? And different things like that. I think we were able to use counsel in that kind of way. But then at the end of the day, we got to make a choice. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you got to make a choice and you got to stick with it. You got to live with it. And so that's kind of how I've always seen it. So it doesn't become this, because I remember there were times where I was like, well, how do I know? How do I know? Right. How do I know? And because of how do I know, I'm not going to make a move because I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's like sometimes you're trying to hear something from God and you feel like he's not speaking. I'm like, okay, this marriage thing, he's definitely not going to speak about this. You know, it's like, he hasn't said nothing about this. So it's like, how do I know? And so, yeah, I definitely found that like being able to pray about it and seeing those that are around you and talking with them about it, hopefully they're encouraging. But I know to the point where somebody said, you know, everything that goes before an altar has to die. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get married in front of an altar, it's for both of you guys to hopefully die to yourself at that point when you're saying all of those words. And my mom, she said, this, it just stuck with me. You know, she was like, you have to enter into marriage by faith, because you never know how people are going to change.
Not by spiritual impartation.
Not
by any of the. No.
You got to do that mug by faith, because people change. They grow or they just regress or something, you know, and it's tough. And those moments are tough and unfortunate. But I mean, this is close to me, because I have, you know, family members where it didn't always go so well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like for me, it's it's a big deal, because I'm like, I see how there's that people can move one direction or the other. And it's like, man, you might not be the person that I thought I was marrying. You know, 10 years later, we're here, we hate each other. Yeah. You know, hopefully that's not the case, but nobody predicts that. Right. Nobody thinks they're headed towards that. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of Ellie, as you mentioned earlier, he has this funny, but I agree with him. You know, he says, if people are on divorce and I came to your wedding, you guys need to throw another event, invite everybody again, go on the altar, and then divorce. I was like, that's a little extreme, but I'm like, I get the concept behind that. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. To me, I was like, I don't know if there is a day one.
Yeah, bro. I feel
Needless to say.
We'll take a left turn. Loved that. Goodness. Loved that. Left turn. Because something that we want to kind of get back. We want to kind of get back to our roots again this year, to where in the podcast it's under Perspectives, a nonprofit. The whole mission is provide travel, culture, service opportunities for people to grow.
Right.
Cool, fun stuff. In the first year, we talked a lot about missions. We talked a lot about people traveling, all of that. And then COVID came around. And it's like, aha, fun stuff.
Yep.
And then we started to develop this like side project, this app that we've been working on. Like more creativity came in. A lot of our friends like just became creatives. Like it's just like okay. And so then
Yeah,
like
you'll have really cool friends.
You have really cool friends.
They're incredibly talented.
A lot of our friends are your friends.
Yeah.
We have cool friends. We collectively. But in it, we embraced that more. We didn't shy away from it. It was great. But this year, like we felt like the Lord was really leading us. Like, all right, like let's make sure that we stay true to what like we set out to do. And in that vein, something that you were able to do is take an insane trip to Israel.
Yes.
And it's a place that both of us have wanted to go. Hopefully, we're going to be able to go late next year, early the year after.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. But share with us about the trip. You can share practicals. You can share what the Lord spoke to you on the trip, like whatever you want to share.
Man, it's hard to sum it up and I feel like everyone says that when they come back from Israel of like, you just don't know. I did not know. So it was my first time in Israel, and I don't think it was a coincidence either that I turned 30 when Jesus started his ministry when he was 30, and I went to Israel and saw all of the biblical a lot of them, not all. And also I was just in a transition period in my job. I was in between jobs, and it really was just such a gift that I didn't know that I needed at the time. Like, of course, when they originally asked me to lead, I was like, absolutely. Don't even have to think about this. Don't have to pray about it. It's like the Lord's holy land. Like, of course he wants me to go, And so like my role as the leader, I led with the Dallas campus pastor, Steve Thompson, who was incredible. But my role was like really like logistics heavy of approving all the team members and a lot of correspondence back and forth, which I love. Like I'm very detail oriented. I love planning trips. It's like my pride and joy. Like love going on missions trips, personal trips, all the things. And so it was a lot of fun. But it was incredible. Like it was amazing. I think, I don't know if this is what you want to hear, but it's what you're going to hear. I kind of struggled a little bit having to be the person that had all the answers to things when I had never been there myself. Mm-hmm. So I think that was definitely something, and it was like a fire hose of information. And, I'm trying to take care of 40 people and make sure that they had everything they need and all logistics are smooth, and talking with the tour leader, but also trying to soak it in all myself. And so there was a point that I actually got really frustrated on the trip, and just being like, Lord, I'm supposed to get something out of this trip, and I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of this trip. And like, can you just like give me something? And then I got baptized in the Jordan River, and Steve Thompson said something incredibly sweet to me that, I just want to kind of keep personal. But like I don't think he even knew the impact of his words. And from that moment, that was pretty kind of early on in our trip. Like I just kind of had this whole new perspective of like, I'm experiencing the freaking Holy Land, and this is like incredible. And there were definitely things that were like surprising to me about Israel. So y'all have never been, right? Mm-hmm. So there were things where I was like, I've had all these friends lead trips and gone to Israel, and I'm like, why in the world did no one tell me that Jerusalem is so freaking Catholic to where it almost didn't ruin it, but you're like, what is going on here?
It's almost like eerie in a way, I guess, something like that.
Yes. So, and it was just things that I didn't know. maybe on me that I'm just not like researching all of these things all the time. But I was talking to one of my friends back home while I was over there, and I was telling her this, like, we went, first day in Jerusalem, we went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where they believe that the Lord was crucified and where he was laid on the stone, and the tomb is there. And we can hardly get into the church because there's so many people. And then you get in there and it is like gaudy gold things just everywhere. People are throwing themselves over this stone, rubbing cloths on it, crying over it. And then you have people upstairs doing the same thing of where they think, he was crucified. And I'm just like, what is happening in here? And I felt like Jesus in the temple of like, I just wanted to turn over the tables and be like, what have y'all done to this place that is supposed to be like so holy? And so that day was quite a little bit of a shock to the system. And it does feel really eerie and it feels weird. And not like the Israel that I had always thought of and been told about. And so I kind of was like struggling with that as well and talking to some of my friends back home. And one of them just really encouraged me of like, the Lord's going to show up in the most unexpected places in Israel. So like listen to him in the unexpected places. And that was 1,000% the case of like these biblical sites where I thought that I would get emotional of like, this is where Jesus was crucified. You would think that I would be like bawling my eyes out. And I literally was like, get me away from here. Going into the upper room. And I'm just like, I don't like it in here either. Like, and then we went to the site called Magdala. I didn't know what it was either, so I'll explain it. It is by the Sea of Galilee, and it is said to be where Mary Magdalene is from. Like it is where Mary Magdalene is from. And where it sits in the Sea of Galilee, I'm going to back up. Okay, so Magdala is a first century temple that they uncovered 15 years ago. And it is the only for sure first century temple where they can say this temple was here when Jesus was alive. Every other temple is like third century where they're like, yeah, it may be like built upon a first century, but scholars disagree on this and disagree on that. No one disagrees that this temple was like Jesus went to this temple. And they found it 15 years ago. That's it, 15 years ago. And where it sits in the Sea of Galilee, it's kind of in this valley in between the mountains that come down. And so it is, quote unquote, supposed to be a couple of miles down the road. And so they've always looked for things there and haven't ever been able to find it. And so archaeologists would be like, oop, well, Bible's wrong. Doesn't exist. It's not here because it's supposed to be right here. But because of where it sits, like it would be very easy that like a flash flood would have come through and just completely destroyed the town. So it would have moved up the stream a couple of miles. I don't even think it's a couple of miles, honestly. And sure enough, this hotel guy was like, I want to build a hotel here. Starts digging, and literally this is what they find. And so something our tour guide said to us was that, like, archaeology is always going to line up with the Word of God. We just have to give it time. And so for me, that was like the most impactful place and kind of an unsuspecting place. Like you would think it would be these other places of like, Jesus, yes, Mount Beatitudes is amazing and going here and going there. But that was the place where I was like, it hit me the most of like, the Word of God is true. And people might not always see it and may disagree, but like things in the earthly realm are going to line up with the Word of God. You just have to give it time. And so for me, I might start crying. Being in a pretty hard transition in life during the trip, it kind of was like what the Lord has spoken to me is going to show up. I just have to give it time. And that was like the most impactful place. And a very unsuspecting place, but it also is just really cool because they also have like a whole church dedicated to women of the Bible. And so that's cool, being a woman. And so they have all these pillars of women in the Bible that are literal pillars inside this church. And they have this beautiful mural of the woman touching the hem of Jesus's garment. And it is just... it's beautiful and it's breathtaking, and it's just, that part of the trip just wrecked me. It just wrecked me. And so Jesus really did show up in the unsuspecting moments and places in Israel, and it was incredible. And I understand why people are like, I need to go back 7 more times, because there's just like so much, and it's so cool to see everything. I'm a very like visual person, and so reading the Bible, you make up pictures and what does it look like, this and that, and then you have The Chosen, the show that kind of shows you this and shows you that. But like going there and really seeing how close everything is, and like, oh, this hill is there and this valley is here, and like this town was here, and oh yeah, he really did just kind of like hop over a hill, and the hill's really not that big, and mountains over there are hills in Texas. And so you're like, oh yeah, that's not actually that crazy. It just puts everything in a new perspective, like distance wise for me of, it was just really cool to see like how far the Sea of Galilee is from Jerusalem, and then the Dead Sea from this, and all of the things. And that was one of the coolest things too, of just, it really, everyone says it just really makes the Bible and the stories in the Bible just like come alive. And we had an incredible tour guide who's a Messianic Jew, spirit-filled believer, who's just incredible, and gave us a lot of history of Israel in general, and also biblical things as well. And so we saw a lot of jets, heard a lot of jets over there, which was like, we're like literally marking down the time. It's so terrible. We're like marking down the time that we hear the jets flying over, and then we're like Googling it later to be like, where were they going? But it was, I felt very honored and blessed that they asked me to lead that trip, because it definitely was like a marker in my life, in my 30th year of life. And I had no idea that a job transition was going to be happening in the middle of it, of course. And I just felt like it was the sweetest gift of, I got to, about a month before, I just wasn't working. And so I just got to focus completely on this trip and preparing for this trip. And then on the back end, I didn't have to worry about going to a job after. So like I could just get over jet lag and kind of, lackadaisical way. Whereas normally, you're up at 4 a.m. and have to go to work, and then you're dead at 2 p.m. And so it was amazing. It was so good. So.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people like, kind of share their experience going there. And like you said, I think it's one thing to be able to visualize everything. It really puts things in perspective. So I was in the car. I think I was in the car listening to the radio, and they were talking about coming to visit. It was like an infomercial about coming out. One of those tourist ones, come out to Jerusalem, and I'm like, oh, okay. They're gonna tell us to go see some of the things you mentioned, but it was like, we have the best bars and all these. I said, whoa, that's not what I was thinking about. But in light of like being able to see and witness everything. To me, like when I was in Hawaii, I saw a whole bunch of tourists. You know what I'm saying? Was that kind of like the same thing where you were just constantly surrounded by tourists and all that?
Constantly. And because Israel, I think it was like in March, had just opened up to you didn't have to be vaccinated. And so anyone could come. They were fully opened once again. And they took away all the restrictions. There used to be, you had to quarantine, and then you didn't. And so it was like full-blown tourists everywhere. And something that Pastor Steve had said, because, it's like you pull up in your charter bus, but then you literally have 50 charter buses behind you. And so it's just like, oh gosh, okay. But something he said that really shifted all of our perspective of like, instead of letting that like really bum us out or ruin the spot that we're at or this and that, like shift your perspective of like, these people are coming to experience the same Holy Land that you are as well. And how incredible that they have made the journey just like you to come and see all of these biblical sites. And for me, I was like, yeah, like that's incredible. Like the fact that it is just overrun with tourists. And the fact that it's like the top 3 money making in Israel, and they didn't have it for almost 2 years, and their economy suffered because of it. And so it's like, this is the Lord's land, and so we're able to stimulate their economy once again and help them get back to hopefully, where they were before. It's just shifting that. But yes, it was a lot of tourists, but I will say, and even our tour guide said it too, of like, there were a lot of the sites that we would go to and we would be leaving, and then like 20 tour buses would be showing up. So it's like we would just miss really the influx of people. And she was like, I've never, like, that is favor. She's like, that does not normally happen. And I'm like, favor and fair. Love that. I did end up in an Israeli ER.
As Josue would say, talk about it.
I took one out of Josue's book, and I danced a little too hard on a boat. We were on a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. And they were teaching us the Hava, Lagira, Hava, na. Yeah, right. And you just like go in circles, and when I got really into it. And I thought that like a month and a half, 2 months before the trip, I slightly tore a tendon in the side of my foot, and I was in a boot for like 2 weeks, and then I got out of it and it was fine. So anyway, I was kicking on the Sea of Galilee, and I just stepped off my foot weird, and then I was having a really hard time walking the rest of the day, and it bruised and all this stuff. So I thought that I like hardcore tore that tendon. Turns out I just sprained my foot really bad and then had a really bad bone bruise. But yeah, so I experienced an Israeli hospital, and they basically were like, you're not dying, please leave.
That's good.
So that, put that on check that off the bucket list of, international hospital visits.
Did you have something happen on the Alps trip? I can't remember.
I had it before. I brought a boot with me. Listen, I've been in a boot
Yeah,
so many times in my life.
Yeah.
I need some deliverance. Kid you not. But yeah, I had to bring a boot with me to the Alps. And then, funny enough, I actually had my boot shipped from the States to me in Israel, so I could have a boot because they didn't have anything there. Asked for a brace, and they were like, no.
What is a brace?
Yeah, they literally gave me like gauze, and they're like, because I was like, can you at least like wrap it up? Because I'm like, if I can stabilize it, I'll be okay. Yeah. And they like put gauze on it, and I was like, this isn't gonna work. But saw some interesting things in the hospital too. So yeah, if you're queasy about blood, probably don't.
Yeah, no. We'll leave those in the hospital.
Yeah.
What was the culture like over there? Because I know at least I've heard of like basically the Sabbaths, like everything shuts down. So like, what was that like? What was like the rest of the culture like around there?
Yeah. I feel like part of that is kind of hard to answer because I don't feel like unless you maybe like live there, you can really experience the culture because of where you're going is all very touristy. But the Sabbath was really cool. We had one Sabbath while we were there, and so one of the leaders of the tour group that we go with came and did Shabbat. He led us in Shabbat on Friday night, and it was incredible, like singing all of the prayers in Hebrew and leading us through it. And it just was like, I've done Shabbat here with my friends before, but like none of us speak Hebrew. and it's like, there's always like kids kind of running around. And so it's like, we're in it, but we're not in it. And so for this to be like my first like true Shabbat was in Israel was just, it was so cool and amazing, and meeting him. And I think I think something that kind of surprised me was, and maybe it shouldn't have, but how much everyone loves America. Like how all the Israelis that we met like love America and are so grateful that we're there and happy that we're there. And part of that is I'm like, I don't know if that, I don't think it's BS. I don't know if it's just like we love America, or but it's like I think that the Messianic Jews really see the importance of obviously Israel, and then believers in America partnering with them in Israel. That was really cool. And I also love that, like, our tour guide, like I said, she's Israeli, but our bus driver is,
Is there another country around there?
yes. Oh, gosh.
Palestinian?
No, we did go to
Jordanian?
Palestine, though, into a Palestinian authority. We went to Jericho. That was a completely different experience. But, oh my gosh, what is the word? I want to be respectful.
What do you think,
too, so I
Josue?
don't want to.
No
I have
idea.
no idea.
Hold on, it's coming to me.
That region's not.
Egyptian.
He's
Syrian.
starts with an A.
Arabic?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that just woof. And so our tour guide was saying, like, in the news you see how much the Arabs and the Israelis don't get along, and they're always fighting, and there's always this and there's always that, and there's, unrest everywhere all the time. But she's like, we literally work together like every day, and it's just normal life. And like there is like the Arab corner of Jerusalem, and there's the Muslim, and there's the Jewish, and then the Christian, and like going through those it is like a different culture, each one that you go into, which was interesting and cool. And but just seeing kind of like the daily life, a little bit of just them, of our tour guide and our bus driver, and hearing his story like a little bit. And it's just really cool of like the media obviously plays up so much of everything to where when you go, you're like, oh, okay, this is not really what that's like.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
mean,
sure it exists. Obviously it exists in some areas, but there was actually a terrorist attack while we were there that we like drove past, and like some guy ran into a bus stop and like shattered it and all the things. And so like seeing that, you're like, oh, well, this is what I do hear and read about. But also I'm like, the Lord's protection on his people, I think, is very evident as well. And so it was really cool though.
Dang.
Yeah, because I had a friend. She's in where's she at? In Dubai. Yeah, she's in Dubai, and so because I remember talking before she left, and then kind of just while she was there, I'm like, so is it like they say in the movies and on TV? She's like, no. I was like, wow, I'm not surprised at all. Because you gotta go places to be able to actually see, how people live and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot more we want to talk with you about, but it is late too.
I know, I'm so sorry.
And we all have things in the morning. It's okay. Josue's just a busy guy. We had to record a little bit later.
We derailed this with dating.
Oh yeah.
No. That was needed. That was perfect. Amazing. And that just means we'll have to have you on for round 2.
Hey, I am, I'll pencil you in, as you say, because it, took so long to get me here.
It did.
I just had been waiting on my invite, but, that's neither here nor there.
Hey,
Everything was shut down.
we just needed you to go to Israel. That was it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, things were shut down. Post office. Yeah, post office was shut down a little bit. So, but now we're here.
Yeah,
having a
we
good
made
old
it.
time.
Look, we made it.
Yeah. Josue, any last things?
No, that was great. I really had a good time. I've never stood up for a podcast before, so that was my first.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm honored. I'm honored. And yes, thank you for having me on here.
Yeah. That was great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Hopefully, your hot takes don't get us canceled. But if it does,
it was for a good purpose.
It was for a good purpose. It's for a good purpose. But no, I really enjoyed the conversation. I hadn't seen you in a while, so it was good being able to hear all your stories and the way you think and everything else. So,
Yeah. Any last things for you?
Go out on dates.
Or go to Israel.
and go to Israel. Go out on dates, and also make a point to go to Israel because it's incredible.
Dang, that's awesome. Yeah, we appreciate the time. As I already said, you're awesome. Like, excited for everything that you have over these next few months, over this next year.
Yeah.
Like, we're excited to be maybe not present, but be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So that'll be a wrap for us today, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll be putting all of Ruth's information in the description below if you want to support her, catch up with her life, any other future trips you got, all that fun stuff. All of our information will be in the description below as well if you want to support us, the outreaches, podcasts, everything that we're doing. So until next time, much love. God bless.